of like, well, now there's a Jewish aspect, and
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
kind of being under the law, thinking that the law saves you, requiring things, or sometimes excluding Gentiles, which is a horrible thing to do. Um, so the idea is, at the end of the day, there's a different expression of faith in being Jews and Gentiles, but there's not really any difference in Messiah. So
Mm.
there shouldn't really be a difference in, between Christians and Messianic Jews, if everybody has good doctrine. Um, but I think the um, idea of like Christians versus Messianic Jews is really more better understood as like Messianic Gentiles and Messianic Jews. I think that's a
Mm.
much better way to say it. And a lot of times the distinction isn't even necessarily something that is needed to bring up. Just saying Messianic is fine.
Mm.
What is something that I've noticed people do, and not a whole lot, but people who are Gentiles will say, well, they're Messianic Jews because they have a
Mm.
misunderstanding of, being a, quote unquote, the true Jew, which is talking specifically about Jews who come to faith.
Mm.
And I think, first of all, aside from being a wrong interpretation of the New Covenant, it is also just a bad testimony because when you talk to most Jews, what they think is Messianic Jew is a Gentile who pretends to be Jewish and
Mm.
is of the Christian faith. So just a matter of testimony, it's just the wrong thing to do. It's error. If you're a Gentile, you should rejoice in being Gentile. If you're Jewish, you should
Mhm.
rejoice in being Jewish. Not as a matter of pride because one is not better than the other. It's just, if God made you one way or another, it's just like if you're a man or a woman, you should rejoice in that.
Mm.
Um, so obviously, we both go to Hope of Israel, so we have the particular doctrines that are, I would say a lot of Protestant congregations would have. Um, but yeah, I guess the short of it is it shouldn't really be any difference. It's just a
Mm.
different understanding. But there are a lot of, unfortunately, Messianic congregations that have blatant heresies on them.
Mhm.
And maybe I think a lot of Christians, when they think about Messianic Judaism, that was also the first thing that comes into their mind. And I don't know if it's just their experience or their just understanding. But I think, as Messianic Jews and Gentiles, offering up our testimony to both, people in and out of the faith, hopefully we can correct that particular prejudice.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. I never really, I personally have never really thought of it like that. That they should be the same, because we're brought up, they're because I was raised in the Baptist world. I was raised in traditional um, the Southern Baptist Church, and I got saved at a Baptist church. And then I was brought into the Messianic world when I was 13 years old, and it was a completely different world from what you would normally see at a Protestant or Baptist church. And it's like, and they're brought up to be two different worlds, but like you said, they shouldn't be that way. They should be the same. Obviously, one has a more Jewish aspect to it than the other, but they should all be pointing to Messiah, and they should all be, it should be, that the, like you said, good with good teaching, and good solid doctrine. Um, they should be very similar when you compare them.
Mm-hmm.
So and so that's one thing that's been on my heart, is to reach out to, the Christians who may not know, or those who have, been taught wrong doctrine, that that the church is now Israel, or that 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 Israel is no longer valid, um, because they've been replaced or they've been divorced, and all these misinterpretations of the book of Jeremiah, the book of Isaiah, the book of uh, and the book of Romans. Paul
Mm-hmm.
is so people misunderstand Paul, um, more so than I think anybody else. Um, I mean, I'm not saying that like Paul is easy to read. It's but there, uh, but but he uses references from the old covenant in almost every chapter of Romans.
Hmm.
And so, but yeah, so, I'd like to move on to the, an important question. Um, the, before I move on, anything to add to that, or anything that have in your mind that you want to add, or something I might have missed?
Yeah, I think if we had the time, maybe say something short about some Christians might wonder why have Messianic synagogues in general, why have Messianic synagogues? Because sometimes they might make the argument that, well, if you make a Messianic community, you're going to pull all the Jews away from your regular churches, and then you're going to lose the aspect of culture that they and influence that they might have on it. Just a very short kind of to touch on a subject. The churches that I've been into that had, Jewish believers in them, for the most part, they didn't care. Sometimes they didn't even know that they were Jews. So I don't think that that's really a good argument, because if the church itself is not, pointing to the importance of the kind of the, if you're Jewish, you're still Jewish, and there's a glorifying way for God to express that, then I think really what happens is that the identity of Jewish believers dissipates, and all of a sudden, after generations, they might not, practice Judea, any kind of like the Messianic Judaism, or might not even know that they're Jews. Like if, they'll go by the Orthodox way of, who is Jewish as far as, the children goes, and they'll go by the mother only, which is the Orthodox interpretation, which is incorrect, because
Mm,
it's whether the father or the mother is Jewish, the kids will be Jewish. But again, they might not even know that their children are Jewish still, and then again that kind of dissipates. So I think that's a false assumption, is that the kind of culture and influence that Jews might have, Jewish believers might have in the, Gentile church. I think it's the other way around. They just lose their identity and all that. So I think it is
mm,
important to have Messianic communities, and usually you'll have about a 50-50 mix of Jews and Gentiles, and I think that works much
mm.
better.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. I mean, and unfortunately, there's not that many Messianic congregations. There's more popping up for sure, but nowhere near as many as there are, churches that we see. Um, and what an amazing thing it would be if actually, these churches would actually, you know, they would become messianic, and just become, that, not change their identity, but that they would be a place where Jewish people would feel welcome, and they wouldn't feel like they have to assimilate, you know and so, um that'd be awesome to see. um
Mhm.
and so but the question I really wanted to get to, um we're getting close on time. um as my channel, we're going through First Peter, and also in our young adult group of believers, we're going through that too.